My mother slammed her fork down and demanded I cancel our family vacation to punish my two children. My sister sat across the table, wiping fake tears, expecting me to fold like I had done for 34 years. So, I looked them in the eye and agreed to throw away the tickets. They thought my silence was submission. They had no idea I was about to turn their greed into the perfect trap. Hello and welcome to Maya Revenge Stories. We want to be honest with you. YouTube has completely demonetized our channel, leaving us without the necessary budget to keep producing the content you love. If you find today's story compelling, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon, where you will gain access to exclusive, longer, and incredibly detailed true stories featuring multiple emotional voice actors that are simply too sensitive to share publicly on YouTube. You can easily join us by scanning the QR code on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link located in the description or pinned comment below. Now, let us begin today's journey and step into the shoes of our main character, Zoe Gomez. The air inside my mother Eleanor's dining room was always thick, but on this particular Sunday evening, it felt entirely unbreathable. I sat perfectly still, a 34-year-old woman reduced to feeling like a reprimanded child in a matter of seconds. The heavy grandfather clock in the corner ticked away the agonizing seconds, echoing against the suffocating silence of the room. Then came the sound that always signaled doom in our family. Eleanor brought her heavy silver fork down hard against the vintage mahogany table. The sharp, metallic clatter cut through the tension like a physical blow, making both of my children jump in their seats. Eleanor did not even bother looking at me at first. She kept her cold, judging eyes fixed entirely on my two kids. Maya, who had just turned 14, sat with her spine rigid, her jaw clenched tight as she tried to shield her younger brother. Beside her was Leo, my sweet 10-year-old boy, staring down at his untouched roast beef, his small shoulders hunched inward as if waiting for a storm to break. "Your children do not deserve that Florida vacation," Eleanor announced, her voice booming across the plates of fine china. The words hung in the stale air, dripping with absolute venom. "Not after what they said to their cousins this afternoon. It is disgraceful. Zoe, absolutely disgraceful." I looked across the table at my older sister, Valerie. She was already in her element, dabbing the corners of her eyes with a linen napkin, playing the devastated victim to absolute perfection. But I knew the truth of what had happened just 2 hours prior in the backyard. Leo had been so incredibly proud of his new winter jacket. We had found it at a local vintage thrift store last week. It was a classic retro design, and he had worn it every single day since. Valerie's two sons, however, possessed the exact same toxic arrogance as their mother. They had cornered my 10-year-old in the garden, pointing and laughing, calling him a beggar and loudly mocking him for wearing hand-me-down trash while they flaunted their expensive designer brands. Leo had been on the verge of tears when Maya stepped in. My brave, fierce 14-year-old daughter had shoved her way between the boys, shielding her brother, and looked her cousins dead in the eye. She had told them clearly and firmly, "We would rather wear old clothes than play with mean bullies like you guys." That was it. That was the terrible, unforgivable crime my children had committed. They had defended themselves. But in Eleanor's house, Valerie and her offspring were royalty, and we were merely the peasants expected to kiss the ground they walked on. Valerie sniffled loudly, ensuring our mother's full attention remained on her fabricated misery. "They are just so aggressive, Mom," Valerie whimpered, forcing a pathetic tremble into her voice. "My boys were just teasing, just trying to play a little joke, and Maya attacked them with such hatred. I just do not know where she learned such disrespect. It breaks my heart to see our family divided like this over something so petty." Eleanor's face hardened into a mask of pure indignation. She turned her piercing glare back to me, pointing a manicured finger in my direction. "You need to teach those kids a lesson in respect. Zoe, you have spoiled them into thinking they can talk down to their betters. You will cancel that Florida trip. You will cancel it right now. They need to learn that actions have severe consequences." My heart stopped. We had been planning that Florida trip for over 8 months. I had worked countless overtime hours just to afford the flights and the modest hotel near the beach. Maya and Leo had crossed off the days on the calendar hung in our kitchen, counting down to the one week where we could escape the cold and just be happy together. I looked at my children. The absolute despair washing over their faces felt like a physical knife twisting deep into my chest. Leo's bottom lip quivered as a silent tear rolled down his cheek, splashing onto his plate. Maya looked away, her fierce bravado crumbling into defeated resignation. In their shattered expressions, I saw the ghost of my own childhood. I remembered every birthday ruined, every achievement downplayed, and every dream crushed just so Valerie could shine brighter. I remembered being told to be quiet, to yield, to apologize for things I never did, all in the name of keeping the peace. A sudden blinding heat rose in my throat. Every instinct I possessed screamed at me to stand up, to sweep the fine china off the table, to scream until my lungs gave out. I wanted to tear down Valerie's fake tears and expose the ugly, rotten core of this family. But I looked at Valerie's eyes over the rim of her napkin. I saw the eager anticipation there. She wanted me to explode. She wanted me to look crazy, to scream and cry so she could validate her narrative that I was an unstable, bitter younger sister. If I fought back now, I would lose. I would just be giving them exactly what they craved. I took a slow, deep breath, pulling all that burning rage down into the deepest, coldest part of my soul. I let the silence stretch out, forcing Eleanor and Valerie to wait. When I finally spoke, my voice was as smooth and unbothered as still water. "I understand," I said quietly, looking directly at my mother. "I will cancel the tickets tonight." The fake tears vanished from Valerie's eyes instantly, replaced by a momentary flash of shock, which quickly morphed into a sick, triumphant smirk. She had won. Again. I stood up from my chair, ignoring the heavy weight of injustice pressing down on my shoulders. I gently placed a hand on Leo's back and motioned for Maya to stand. "Come on, kids. We are going home," I murmured. We walked out of the dining room without another word. I helped them into their coats in the suffocating hallway, feeling the burning gazes of my mother and sister on my back. I did not look back. I simply opened the heavy front door and led my children out into the crisp, freezing evening air, leaving Valerie to bask in her pathetic little victory. She thought she had broken us. She thought she had taken away our only source of joy. She had no idea that she had just signed her own social and financial death warrant. The drive back to our small apartment was cloaked in a heavy, comforting silence, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere we had just escaped. The moment I turned the deadbolt, locking the toxicity of my mother's house outside, the rigid, defensive posture of my children finally collapsed. Maya threw her arms around my waist, burying her face in my shoulder, while Leo clung tightly to my side. I dropped to my knees right there in the narrow hallway, gathering them both into a fierce, protective embrace. "Listen to me," I whispered, making sure to look deeply into both of their tear-stained eyes. "You did absolutely nothing wrong today. You stood up for yourselves, and I'm so incredibly proud of you both. Do you hear me? Never apologize for defending your own dignity against people who want to tear you down." Maya sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her sleeve. "But Mom, the trip. You worked so hard for it. Now we have nowhere to go." I offered her a soft, conspiratorial smile, gently wiping a stray tear from her cold cheek. "Do not worry about that silly beach trip, sweetie. I promise you, something infinitely better is coming our way." Once I had drawn them a warm bath and tucked them safely into bed, the exhausted sorrow washed away entirely, replaced by an icy, razor-sharp clarity. I brewed a strong cup of black coffee and sat at my kitchen island, opening my silver laptop. It was time to go to work. What my mother and sister did not know, and what I had purposefully kept hidden from them for the past 4 years, was the reality of my professional life. In their arrogant eyes, I was merely a struggling, low-level data entry assistant barely scraping by on minimum wage. The truth was vastly different. I was the lead corporate communications and crisis management director at Lumina Core Strategies, a top-tier media technology firm. Just 2 weeks prior, I had successfully spearheaded a massive international campaign for a Fortune 500 client. The performance bonus that had hit my bank account just 3 days ago was staggering, amounting to exactly $85,000. I was not struggling. I was thriving in the shadows, entirely free from their financial judgment and desperate need for control. I opened my personal email and found the booking confirmation for the cheap, 3-star motel and the budget airline tickets to Florida. My finger hovered over the bright red cancellation button. A normal person would have clicked it, taken the 60% refund, and moved on with their life. But I was not dealing with normal people. I was dealing with Valerie, a woman whose profound greed was only matched by her staggering sense of entitlement. I knew exactly how her dark mind operated. If she saw a discarded opportunity, she would inevitably try to scavenge it for herself. She would want to take her own awful children to Florida on my dime, just to twist the knife a little deeper and prove she was the undisputed favorite daughter. So, I did not cancel the tickets. Instead, I carefully embedded a highly sophisticated network tracking pixel into the original confirmation email, a brilliant little trick I had picked up from the cybersecurity engineers at LuminaCore. This invisible pixel would immediately alert me the second the email was opened, forwarded, or if the booking reference numbers were inputted into the airline's database from a different Internet Protocol address. Once the digital tripwire was securely set, I forwarded the confirmation email directly into the shared family inbox. I typed a brief, defeated-sounding message. Cancelled as requested. Here are the voided reference codes. I am so sorry for causing such trouble. I hit send, leaning back in my ergonomic chair with a slow, predatory grin. The bait was in the water. All I had to do now was wait for the bottom feeder to bite. Within 45 minutes, my tracking software pinged loudly. Valerie had opened the email. 10 minutes later, she opened it again. Then, the system notified me that a device located in Valerie's exact zip code was actively accessing the airline's web portal, attempting to transfer the passenger names on the supposedly voided tickets. She was actually doing it. She was stealing the reservation. Assuming the airline had a system glitch that allowed her to bypass the cancellation fee and claim the fully paid seats for her own family. I watched the data roll across my screen, my heart beating with the cold, steady rhythm of a metronome. Let her have the humid, crowded Florida swamp. My children and I were going to the top of the world. I opened a new, secure browser window and navigated to an exclusive luxury travel agency. With a few decisive keystrokes, I bypassed the budget beach vacations entirely and aimed directly for the Arctic Circle. I authorized a swift payment of $22,000 from my secret bonus account. In an instant, I secured a 10-day stay at an ultra-exclusive resort in Lapland, Finland. We were not going to be crammed into a loud, sticky amusement park line. We were going to stay in private, heated glass igloos nestled deep within a pristine, snow-covered pine forest, designed perfectly for watching the northern lights dance across the night sky. Over the next 3 weeks, our small apartment transformed into a clandestine command center. I swore Maya and Leo to absolute secrecy, explaining that we were embarking on a highly classified, magical mission. The sheer, unadulterated joy that replaced their previous heartbreak was worth every single penny. We spent our evenings huddled around my glowing laptop screen, ordering top-of-the-line thermal gear, specialized wool layers, and waterproof snow boots. Whenever a delivery box arrived, we would quietly celebrate, hiding the sleek, high-end ski suits in the very back of my closet, far away from any prying eyes. Valerie and Eleanor continued to treat us with smug, condescending pity at the mandatory Sunday dinners, completely oblivious to the fact that while they were plotting to steal a budget vacation, we were silently packing our luxury bags for a breathtaking winter paradise. The trap was perfectly set. The bags were packed. And the countdown to absolute liberation had officially begun. The morning of our departure was crisp and bright. I had ordered a black luxury car instead of our usual budget rideshare. As we glided down the highway, Maya and Leo sat quietly in the back, clutching their sleek new winter bags, assuming we were heading to the regional train station for a modest staycation in the neighboring state. But when the driver took the massive exit ramp for the International Departures Terminal, Maya leaned forward, her brow furrowed in deep confusion. "Mom, the train station is the other way," she stated, her voice tight with concern. I turned around, flashing a genuine smile I had been holding back for weeks. "We are not taking a train, sweetie, and we are definitely not staying in the country. Grab your passports. Kids, we are flying to Europe." The silence in the car was absolute for exactly 3 seconds. Then, Leo let out a deafening squeal of disbelief, and Maya threw her hands over her mouth, tears of pure, unadulterated shock welling in her bright eyes. The heavy, invisible chains my family had locked around their spirits simply shattered right there in the back seat of that sedan. Walking through the sliding glass doors of the airport, I guided them away from the endless, chaotic economy lines and straight toward the velvet ropes of the premium business class check-in desk. The attendant greeted us by name, taking our heavy luggage with a warm, deeply respectful smile. I watched my children absorb this sudden shift in reality. For their entire lives, my mother and sister had conditioned them to believe they belonged in the background, that they should be eternally grateful for discarded scraps and worn-out hand-me-downs. But as we settled into our expansive, lie-flat private pods on the transatlantic flight, that toxic conditioning began to evaporate into thin air. Flight attendants offered them warm, lavender-scented towels and menus bound in real, soft leather. Leo ordered roasted duck with a sweet cherry glaze, giggling openly as the attendant poured him sparkling apple cider into a real glass flute. Maya wrapped herself in a plush, heavy cashmere blanket, pressing her face against the window as the massive plane soared up into the clouds. There was no shrinking, no apologizing, no dodging cruel, passive-aggressive remarks, suspended 35,000 feet in the air. Sipping hot cocoa from porcelain cups, we were finally and completely untouchable. We touched down in Finland to a world painted entirely in brilliant, blinding white. The biting chill of the Arctic air was shocking but incredibly invigorating, waking up senses we did not even know we possessed. We were not met by a standard, overcrowded hotel shuttle bus. Instead, a team of magnificent, piercing, blue-eyed Alaskan huskies waited for us at the edge of the private airstrip, barking joyously, their warm breath rising like thick smoke in the freezing, crystalline air. We piled into the wooden sled, wrapping ourselves tightly in thick, heavy reindeer hides. With a sharp, ringing command from the musher, the dog surged forward. We tore through the ancient, snow-heavy pine forests, the only sounds being the rhythmic crunch of paws on the packed ice and the roaring, icy wind in our ears. Leo laughed so hard, his cheeks turned a vibrant shade of crimson, and Maya held onto my arm tightly, her eyes wide with absolute untainted wonder. We were literally dashing through an isolated winter wonderland, leaving thousands of miles of pristine, untouched snow between us and the ugly, bitter world we had left behind. Our destination was a secluded, ultra-luxury eco-resort nestled deep within the silent wilderness. We were shown to our own private glass igloos. They were true architectural marvels, featuring heated, transparent domed roofs that offered an unobstructed panoramic view of the sweeping Arctic sky. Inside, the temperature was perfectly controlled, smelling richly of burning cedar logs and fresh pine needles. For the first time in their lives, Maya and Leo had their own massive, opulent spaces, completely free from the crowded, chaotic reality of our tiny city apartment. Our days were filled with breathtaking, empowering adventures. We took private Arctic survival classes, where a rugged local guide taught Maya how to start a blazing fire using just flint and dry birch bark, while Leo learned to navigate the frozen tundra using nothing but a magnetic compass and the position of the pale winter sun. In the evenings, our personal chef prepared magnificent, mouth-watering feasts of smoked wild salmon, tart berry reductions, and hearty, savory venison stews. The wooden dining room echoed with our loud, joyous laughter, a rich, genuine sound that effortlessly chased away the lingering, suffocating shadows of Valerie's cruelty. It was on the evening of our third night that the true, undeniable magic happened. The sky, which had been a deep, inky black, suddenly erupted into a vibrant, swirling canvas of neon green, deep violet, and electric pink. The Northern Lights were putting on a spectacular, private, cosmic show just for us. We rushed outside into the knee-deep, powdery snow, standing in absolute awe beneath the silent celestial ballet. I stepped back, pulling out my professional camera. I watched my two beautiful, resilient children standing side by side, their postures relaxed and confident. Their silhouettes were perfectly framed against the glowing, illuminated snow and the vibrant, dancing sky. I snapped the picture. It was a breathtaking masterpiece of shadow and light, capturing a moment of pure, majestic triumph. I did not need to show our faces. Our posture spoke volumes. We were standing tall, unbroken, and endlessly free. I opened my Instagram application, selected the breathtaking photo, and typed out a single, deliberate caption. When people strip you of a muddy puddle, that is when the universe hands you an entire ocean. I tapped the publish button, sending that glowing beacon of undeniable success directly into the digital feeds of the exact people who thought they had buried us in the dirt. The digital explosion happened almost instantaneously. I had barely stepped back inside the warmth of our glass igloo and shed my heavy snow gear when my phone began to vibrate violently against the wooden nightstand. It was a relentless, buzzing seizure. I picked it up to see 37 missed calls and 52 unread text messages, almost all of them from my mother. "Where are you? Is this some kind of sick joke? You are supposed to be sitting in your apartment reflecting on your mistakes. Answer me right now, Zoe." The absolute panic in Eleanor's typed words was palpable, but it was Valerie who truly lost her grip on reality. Underneath my serene, glowing photograph of the Northern Lights, my sister was spiraling into a public meltdown. She left a string of frantic, unhinged comments for all our mutual friends and extended family to see. "Do not believe this pathetic lie," Valerie typed, her digital desperation practically bleeding through the screen. "Zoe is completely broke. She cannot even afford a decent coat for her kid. She is probably using a fake green screen in her living room just to embarrass our family and act like she is better than us. Absolute fraud." I read her comments and actually laughed out loud. It was a rich, full belly laugh that startled Maya and Leo, who were busy playing a board game by the fireplace. I did not bother replying or deleting Valerie's pathetic outbursts. I knew that engaging with a narcissist only gave them the oxygen they desperately craved. But the universe, it seemed, was not quite finished serving up its poetic justice. The next morning, as Maya, Leo, and I were walking through the resort's stunning ice sculpture garden, a tall man in a bright orange parka suddenly stopped in his tracks, pointing a professional vlogging camera directly at me. "Wait a minute," the man said, lowering his lens. Zoe Gomez from Lumina Core Strategies." It took me a second, but then I recognized the vibrant, energetic face of Julian Brooks. He was an incredibly famous travel and lifestyle content creator with over 4 million subscribers across his digital platforms. 2 years ago, I had personally overseen a massive corporate sponsorship deal for his channel, guiding him through a highly lucrative public relations crisis. He owed me a massive favor, and he knew it. Julian was absolutely thrilled to see me. We grabbed coffee at the ice bar, and I gave him a very brief, carefully curated summary of why I was currently hiding in the Arctic Circle with my children. I did not name names, but I mentioned escaping a deeply toxic, controlling environment to show my kids what true freedom and self-worth looked like. Julian's eyes lit up with absolute professional gold. "Do you mind if I talk about this on my daily update?" he asked, already adjusting his microphone. "People need to hear this. It is incredibly inspiring." I smiled warmly and gave him my blessing. Within 3 hours, Julian uploaded a short, highly emotive video titled, "Why This Single Mom is My Absolute Hero." He did not show my face or the kids, but he pointed to our private glass igloo in the background, recounting the story of a brilliant, successful executive who silently endured the agonizing weight of toxic family judgment, only to flip the script and give her children the literal world. He praised my quiet dignity and my refusal to engage in petty mudslinging. The algorithm caught fire. The video hit the #1 trending spot by that evening. Hundreds of thousands of people watched it, and the comment section became an absolute war zone against emotional abuse. Over 85,000 viewers began fiercely criticizing the vague, unnamed toxic relatives. They called them leeches, narcissists, and pathetic bullies. Back in the United States, Eleanor and Valerie were undoubtedly watching this viral sensation unfold. They knew exactly who the video was about. The unbearable heat of thousands of strangers unknowingly insulting them drove them into a state of absolute, frantic hysteria. My phone lit up with a notification for an emergency family video conference on Zoom. The invitation subject line was typed in all capital letters, demanding my immediate attendance. I connected my phone to the igloo's high-speed wireless internet, joined the meeting, and immediately disabled my camera and microphone. The screen popped up, revealing the flustered, red faces of my mother and sister sitting in Eleanor's living room. They were shouting over each other, demanding I turn on my camera, demanding I make Julian delete the video, and demanding I explain where I got the money to stage this elaborate hoax. I sat back on the plush reindeer rug, completely silent. Maya handed me a steaming mug of rich, dark hot chocolate, topped with thick marshmallows. I took a slow, deliberate sip, watching my abusers scream into the digital void. They had no power here. They were trapped in a tiny box on my screen, miles away, throwing a useless temper tantrum. My absolute silence acted as a spark dropped directly into a powder keg. Valerie's face contorted with a sickening mix of rage and desperate jealousy. She could not handle the fact that I was unreachable, unbothered, and entirely victorious. She needed a win. She needed to prove to herself and to our mother that she was still the smart, resourceful favorite daughter who always came out on top. "Fine," Valerie spat at the screen, her voice shaking with toxic venom. "If you want to play games, Zoe, we will play games. You think you are so smart with your fake little snow trip? Watch me." She slammed her laptop shut, abruptly ending the meeting. I smiled into my mug of hot chocolate. The poison of her own jealousy had completely blinded her to logic. Her fragile ego could not process the humiliation, and in her desperate scramble to reclaim her superiority, she had just decided to make the most catastrophic, irreversible mistake of her entire life. She was going to pack her bags and use those stolen Florida airline tickets. While my children and I were quietly zipping up our premium insulated snowsuits for a private afternoon of cross-country skiing in the breathtaking Finnish wilderness, my sister was dragging her family into an entirely different kind of climate, half a world away. Valerie was hauling her overly packed, cheap synthetic suitcases through the sweltering, unforgiving humidity of the Florida resort parking lot. It was exactly 92 degrees outside, and the air was thick, sticky, and entirely miserable. But Valerie did not care about the heat. She was vibrating with a toxic, triumphant energy. In her twisted mind, she had successfully outsmarted her pathetic younger sister and scored a luxury vacation for absolutely $0. Before even stepping through the automatic glass doors of the Grand Hotel lobby, Valerie forced her sweating husband and her 2 aggressively loud sons to stop in front of a giant, decorative plastic palm tree. She held up her phone, plastering on her signature fake, overly enthusiastic smile, and snapped a high-angle selfie of the 4 of them. Within 60 seconds, the photo was uploaded directly to her Facebook page. I would see the screenshot later, but her caption was sickeningly sweet and entirely predictable. "Good families are always rewarded with the best blessings," she typed, adding a string of beach-themed emojis. "So excited for our much-needed family getaway. Hard work and good morals truly pay off." With her digital bragging complete, Valerie marched her family into the massive, echoing marble lobby of the resort. She bypassed the standard waiting area and strutted directly up to the pristine front desk, acting as if she owned the entire building. She dropped her printed itinerary onto the counter with a loud, arrogant slap. "Checking in," Valerie announced to the young, polite receptionist. "The reservation is under Valerie. We will be needing complimentary wristbands for the water park, and I expect our room to have a premium ocean view." The young receptionist offered a practiced, customer service smile and began typing the confirmation numbers into her keyboard. For 5 agonizingly long seconds, the only sound was the clacking of the keys. Then, the computer monitor flashed a bright, solid red. The receptionist frowned, squinting at the screen. She typed the 12-digit booking reference code a second time. The screen flashed red again, accompanied by a harsh, sharp beeping sound that echoed slightly over the ambient noise of the busy lobby. "I am very sorry, ma'am," the receptionist said, her tone shifting from welcoming to highly cautious. "There appears to be a serious issue with this booking. I am getting an immediate hard lock on the reservation file." Valerie rolled her eyes aggressively, crossing her arms over her chest. "Well, try it again. The trip is fully paid for. There is absolutely no balance due. Your system is obviously glitching. Hurry up. My boys are getting tired." "I cannot override this, ma'am," the clerk replied, stepping back slightly from the counter. "I need to call my duty manager. Please wait right here." Valerie scoffed loudly, turning to look at her husband and muttering about incompetent staff. But her smug irritation quickly evaporated into sharp confusion when the duty manager approached the desk. He was not carrying a room key. He was accompanied by 2 massive, broad-shouldered security officers dressed in sharp black suits. They stepped smoothly out from behind a pair of decorative marble pillars, flanking Valerie on both sides. "Ma'am, I am going to need you to step away from the counter and come with us to the security office," the manager said, his voice dropping low so the other guests would not panic. "Excuse me?" Valerie practically screeched, her voice cracking with sudden indignation. "What is the meaning of this? I demand to be checked into my room immediately." The taller security guard held up a sleek black digital tablet. "Ma'am, the tickets and the hotel reservation you are attempting to use have been officially reported as stolen property. They were flagged by the original purchaser as being compromised through an unauthorized cyber intrusion. We cannot check you in. In fact, we have already contacted the local authorities." Valerie let out a harsh, barking laugh, though a flicker of genuine panic finally appeared in her eyes. "This is completely ridiculous. That is my crazy, dramatic sister. She canceled these tickets because she could not afford them, and I simply transferred them to my name. It is a family dispute, not a crime. Call her right now. She will tell you." "That is not how our network operates," the manager stated coldly. Here is the beautiful, devastating piece of the puzzle that Valerie simply could not comprehend. Lumina Core Strategies, the company she believed I merely answered phones for, was actually the primary corporate cybersecurity vendor for this specific, multi-billion-dollar entertainment conglomerate. When I intentionally forwarded that fake cancellation email into the family inbox weeks ago, I did not just attach a tracking pixel. I linked the specific reservation booking numbers directly into Lumina Core's automated fraud detection software. The system was meticulously designed to protect high-paying clients from digital theft. When Valerie had secretly logged into the airline and hotel portals to change the passenger names to her own family, she thought she was being clever, but she was actually leaving a massive, glowing digital footprint. Every single keystroke she made, her exact internet protocol address, her physical location data, and the precise timestamp of the unauthorized transfer were instantly logged, sealed, and categorized as a deliberate act of cyber fraud against my credit card. The security officer tapped his screen. "We have the irrefutable digital logs, ma'am. The name change originated from an unauthorized device exactly 21 days ago at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The original cardholder, Zoe Gomez, explicitly documented that these assets were stolen via malicious network manipulation. You are currently attempting to redeem thousands of dollars in stolen services. Before Valerie could even attempt to formulate another pathetic lie, the heavy glass doors of the lobby slid open. Two local police officers, their heavy utility belts jangling and their radios crackling, walked purposefully across the marble floor straight toward the commotion. The reality of the situation crashed down on Valerie like a physical ton of bricks. "Ma'am, we need you to produce your identification, and we need you to step outside right now," the lead officer commanded, his hand resting firmly on his belt. Valerie completely lost her mind. She started screaming hysterically, waving her arms and crying out that it was a massive misunderstanding, a cruel setup by her jealous sister. Her carefully crafted facade of the perfect, wealthy mother shattered into a million pieces. Seeing their mother being physically backed toward the exit by uniformed police, her two spoiled sons threw themselves onto the expensive lobby rug. They began kicking and wailing at the top of their lungs, not out of fear, but out of sheer, unadulterated embarrassment and anger that they were not getting their beach vacation. Dozens of other families waiting in the lobby pulled out their smartphones, eagerly recording the spectacular, shrieking meltdown of the woman who had just boasted about her good morals online. The officers read Valerie her rights, citing her and her husband for suspected credit card fraud and attempting to utilize stolen commercial property. Thousands of miles away, sitting in the quiet, heavily carpeted living room of her imposing house, Eleanor was violently yanked out of her peaceful Sunday afternoon. Her phone rang frantically. It was Valerie, sobbing uncontrollably from the back of a police cruiser, begging our mother to fix it, begging her to make the nightmare stop. Eleanor panicked. She immediately hung up and began calling my cell phone. She called 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 14 times. She left frantic, hyperventilating voicemails demanding I call the Florida Police Precinct immediately, ordering me to drop the fraud charges, and screaming that I was destroying our family over a stupid misunderstanding. But I did not hear a single ring. I was currently standing at the peak of a pristine, silent, snow-covered mountain. The air was incredibly pure, and the sky was a flawless, endless blue. My phone was powered completely down, safely tucked deep inside the insulated chest pocket of my designer ski jacket. I adjusted my goggles, looking over at Maya and Leo, who were laughing joyously as they strapped on their skis. The trap had sprung flawlessly. I had never canceled those tickets. I had never asked for a refund. I knew with absolute certainty that Valerie's insatiable greed and toxic entitlement would physically compel her to steal them. I simply built a highly sophisticated digital cage, left the door wide open, and placed the bait right in the center. She walked into it entirely on her own. The moment my key turned in the lock of our apartment door, after a long and incredibly peaceful flight back from Europe, I knew the final storm was waiting for me. My mother's luxury sedan was parked haphazardly right across my driveway, the engine already cold. I pushed the door open, letting Maya and Leo walk in first. Standing right in the middle of my small living room, looking like a pair of drenched, angry rats, were Eleanor and Valerie. Valerie looked absolutely horrendous. The perfect, polished facade was completely gone, replaced by smeared mascara, deeply sunken eyes, and the wrinkled clothes she had presumably worn while sitting in a holding cell for the past 48 hours. Before my mother could even open her mouth to unleash her rehearsed tirade, I felt Maya and Leo pause beside me. A month ago, they would have shrunk back, terrified of the yelling that was about to commence, but the Arctic air had breathed something ancient and unbreakable into their bones. Maya looked at her aunt and grandmother with absolute, chilling indifference. Leo did not even bother to make eye contact. "Come on, Leo," Maya said casually, her voice light and unbothered. "Let us go unpack our snow gear." They walked right past the two seething women, climbing the stairs with calm, steady steps. They left me standing alone in the entryway, shedding my coat with the slow, deliberate grace of a queen preparing to hold court. "You are a monster!" Eleanor finally screamed, her face twisting into an ugly mask of pure hatred. "You are completely cold-blooded, Zoe. You intentionally set your own sister up to be arrested. You humiliated this family on a national level. And for what? Because of some stupid, petty argument between children at a Sunday dinner, you are going to pay for her legal fees. And you are going to issue a public apology to clear her name right now. Valerie sobbed loudly, a grating, pathetic sound. I was in a cell. Zoe, they put handcuffs on me in front of my boys. You ruined my life. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I simply walked over to my work tote bag, unzipped the main compartment, and pulled out a thick, heavy manila folder. I walked over to the coffee table and tossed it down. The heavy thud echoed sharply in the tense room. Open it, I commanded, my voice dropping to a freezing, absolute zero. Eleanor glared at me but reached down, snatching the folder with trembling hands. She flipped it open. The first 20 pages were highly detailed network security logs, beautifully printed and highlighted in bright yellow. What you are looking at, Mother, is the irrefutable digital evidence of Valerie committing felony wire fraud, I explained calmly, pacing slowly across the room. Those are her exact internet protocol addresses, time-stamped to the exact second she decided to steal property that did not belong to her. And right behind those logs, you will find a copy of my most recent tax return, alongside my employment contract as a senior executive director at Lumina Core Strategies. Feel free to read the numbers out loud. I make more in a single financial quarter than Valerie's husband makes in 3 entire years. Eleanor's eyes darted wildly across the financial statements, the color completely drained from her face. The numbers printed on those pages shattered her entire reality. For 34 years, she had built her ego on the delusion that I was a helpless, struggling failure who desperately needed her charity and her guidance. Staring at the undeniable proof of my massive, staggering success, she suddenly realized she had been manipulating a ghost. I had outgrown her a very long time ago. Valerie stared at the papers, her jaw physically dropping as the magnitude of her own stupidity finally washed over her. She had not stolen from a helpless data entry clerk. She had stolen from a cybersecurity expert who could financially crush her without breaking a single sweat. Here are my terms, I said, stepping right up to Valerie, forcing her to look into my unyielding eyes. I have the power to send you to federal prison for a minimum of 5 years. I can press charges right now, and you will lose your home, your reputation, and your children. But I am not going to do that. Valerie let out a desperate, shaky breath of relief, but I immediately raised my hand, cutting her off. I am not doing it for you, I clarified, my tone sharp as shattered glass. I am doing it because my children and I are officially done carrying the heavy, disgusting weight of your toxicity. I will drop the formal charges on one absolute, non-negotiable condition. From this second forward, we are completely severed. No phone calls, no holiday text messages, no showing up at my door, and no more forced Sunday dinners. You will act as if I am dead, and I will do the same for you. If you ever try to contact my children or me again, or if you ever breathe a single negative word about us to anyone, I will hand this entire folder to the district attorney. Valerie collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing violently into her hands. The golden child was dead, buried under the weight of her own pathetic greed. Eleanor stood entirely frozen, clutching the folder to her chest. She opened her mouth to speak, to try and assert some final shred of maternal dominance, but no words came out. For the first time in her miserable life, she had absolutely zero power in this room. "Get out of my house," I whispered. They did not argue. They turned around and walked out the front door, looking like 2 hollow, defeated ghosts. I stood on the porch and watched them shuffle to their car. I did not feel a single ounce of guilt. I grabbed the heavy wooden door and slammed it shut with a resounding, final boom. The sound reverberated through the walls, sealing the tomb of my past forever. I took a deep, cleansing breath, letting the absolute peace of my home wash over me. I turned around and walked down the hallway, following the sweet, comforting smell of baked vanilla. I stepped into the bright, sunlit kitchen. Maya and Leo were sitting at the island, eating large slices of pound cake. Spread out across the counter between them was a massive, colorful map of the world. "Mom," Leo called out, his mouth full of cake, his eyes shining with pure joy. "Maya says we should go to Japan next summer to see the cherry blossoms, but I really want to see the castles in Scotland. What do you think?" I walked over, wrapping my arms around both of their shoulders, pulling them close. There was no fear here. There was no judgment, no manipulation, and no toxic competition. There was only mutual respect, endless possibility, and absolute, unconditional love. "I think," I said, kissing the tops of their heads, "we have plenty of time to explore the entire world together. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my journey today. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please let me know your city or country in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's story and want to help keep Maya Revenge Stories alive, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon. Over there, you will find our absolute best, most intense, and entirely exclusive true stories that are simply too wild and detailed to be made public on YouTube. You can scan the QR code right here on your screen, or you can click the Patreon link provided in the description box and the pinned comment. Thank you again for your incredible support, and I will see you in the next story.